the city that shouldn't exist. There is a city built on islands, carved from swamps, burned to the ground, nearly bankrupted, attacked, rebuilt, and constantly declared finished. Yet it never ends. It reinvents. It absorbs. It dominates. How did a small Dutch trading post become the financial capital of the modern world? How did a narrow strip of land between two rivers turn into the skyline that defines ambition itself? This is the entire history of New York City, told as a story of geography, power, immigration, money, and reinvention. Before New York, the native foundation. Long before skyscrapers, before Wall Street, before Broadway, the land was home to the Lenape people. They called it Lenape. The island now known as Manhattan was rich with forests, rivers, and wildlife. It was not an empty wilderness. It was inhabited, traded across, and culturally alive. Everything changed in the early 1600s. The Dutch era. New Amsterdam is born 1624 to 1664. In 1624, Dutch settlers arrived under the Dutch West India Company. They established a trading colony focused on fur, especially beaver pelts, which were highly valuable in Europe. They named it New Amsterdam. In 1626, Peter Minuit famously purchased Manhattan from local Lenape leaders, a transaction likely misunderstood on both sides. The colony was small, diverse, and commercially driven from the start. Religion was tolerated. Trade was prioritized. Profit came first. The seeds of New York's future personality were already there. But in 1664, the English arrived. Without firing a shot, they took control. New Amsterdam became New York, named after the Duke of York. And the city entered a new phase. British rule and revolution, 1664 to 1783. Under British control, New York grew steadily. Its harbor made it a natural trade hub. Merchants prospered. Slavery became deeply embedded in the city's economy. By the 18th century, enslaved Africans made up a significant portion of the population. New York was already a place of wealth and inequality. When tensions rose between Britain and the American colonies, New York became a strategic battleground. During the American Revolution, it was occupied by British forces for much of the war. After independence, something remarkable happened. In 1789, George Washington was inaugurated as the first president of the United States in New York. For a brief moment, New York City was the nation's capital. But the capital moved. New York stayed, and it grew. The 19th century. Immigration and expansion. The 1800s transformed New York into a gateway. In 1811, the Commissioner's plan laid out Manhattan's iconic grid system, streets and avenues stretching in ordered lines across the island. It was bold urban engineering for a city not yet fully built. Then came the Erie Canal in 1825. Suddenly, New York's harbor connected directly to the American interior. Trade exploded. The city surged ahead of rivals like Boston and Philadelphia. But the true force reshaping New York was immigration. In the mid-1800s, waves of Irish and German immigrants arrived, especially after the Irish potato famine. They crowded into tenements. They worked brutal jobs. They built infrastructure. By the late 19th century, Ellis Island became the primary entry point for millions arriving from Europe. Italians, Jews from Eastern Europe, Poles, Russians. New York became a mosaic of languages and cultures. Poverty was intense. Opportunity was real. The city pulsed with ambition. The rise of finance, Wall Street emerges. While immigrants built neighborhoods, merchants built markets. In 1792, traders signed the Buttonwood Agreement, the foundation of what would become the New York Stock Exchange. Wall Street grew alongside the city. Banks, insurance firms, and shipping magnates accumulated enormous wealth. By the late 1800s, industrial titans like Cornelius Vanderbilt and John D. Rockefeller used New York as their financial base. Skyscrapers began rising. Steel and elevators allowed buildings to stretch upward. The skyline began to take shape. New York was no longer just a port. It was becoming the financial nerve center of America, the 20th century. Boom, bust, and global power. The early 1900s were electric. Bridges like the Brooklyn Bridge connected boroughs. The subway system expanded underground. The city consolidated its 5 boroughs in 1898: Manhattan, Brooklyn, Queens, the Bronx, and Staten Island, forming the New York City we know today. Then came 1929. The stock market crashed. Wall Street collapsed. The Great Depression hit New York hard. But even during hardship, the skyline kept rising. The Empire State Building opened in 1931, at the height of economic despair. It symbolized resilience. After World War II, New York became the capital of the modern world. The United Nations established headquarters there. Immigration patterns shifted. Newcomers arrived from Latin America, the Caribbean, and Asia. The city became even more diverse. By mid-century, New York wasn't just an American city, it was global. Crisis in the 1970s. Niyarkoyaps. In the 1970s, the city nearly went bankrupt. Crime soared. Industries left. Tax revenue collapsed. At one point, the federal government refused to bail it out. The famous headline read, "Ford to City. Drop dead." New York seemed finished, but once again, it adapted. Financial restructuring stabilized budgets. Artists moved into cheap neighborhoods like Soho. Hip-hop was born in the Bronx. Wall Street innovated with new financial products. The city's culture flourished, even in decay. The 1990s revival, the shock of 9/11s. In the 1990s, crime fell dramatically. The economy surged. Technology and finance expanded. Then, on September 11, 2001, tragedy struck. The World Trade Center was destroyed in terrorist attacks that killed thousands. The skyline was wounded. The city grieved. But reconstruction began. One World Trade Center now stands in its place. The financial district recovered. The city endured. Again, the modern era. Inequality, innovation, and reinvention. Today, New York City is home to over 8 million people. It remains a global financial capital. Wall Street influences markets worldwide. The city is a leader in media, fashion, technology, and culture, but it faces new challenges. Housing affordability crisis, income inequality, infrastructure strain, pandemic recovery. The COVID-19 pandemic emptied offices and quieted streets. Once more, people predicted decline. Once more, they were wrong. New York adapts because its core strength is diversity and density of people, ideas, industries it has risen. Conclusion, the city that reinvents itself. From Lenape land to Dutch outpost, from British colony to revolutionary battleground, from immigrant gateway to financial empire. From bankruptcy to resurgence, from tragedy to reconstruction. The history of New York City is not linear. It is cyclical. Crisis, adaptation, growth, reinvention. It is a city built on trade, migration, risk, and relentless ambition. And if history tells us anything, it's this. New York doesn't fade quietly, it transforms. Because the story of New York City isn't just about buildings or boroughs. It's about motion, and motion never stops.